Shrewsbury, Shropshire's medieval jewel, cradled by the River Severn. It's like a whisper in the mist, but beneath its timber frame charms lies a darker current. Drowned nymphs, vengeful spirits, and shadows that just won't sink. Join third-rate content as tonight we investigate some of Shrewsbury's watery ghost stories and Sabrina's world. We're going to dive right in. And if you stick around, you might just hear a story and brush up with the unexplained that I experienced under the station bridge here in Shrewsbury, 3 a.m. early morning. So buckle up and I'll see you out here. To get us started, we're going to go right back to ancient Britain. The story of Sabrina, or Hafren to the Welsh, her Celtic soul known from Shropshire to Paris and beyond. But her story is a tragic one. It starts with King Locherin, her father. He married for power, not for love. But he had a lover who was thought to be a German princess named Estridis. They had Sabrina, their child, out of wedlock, a love child, you might say. But when his wife, Queen Gwendolen, found out about what was going on, she reacted angrily, very angrily. In fact, she demanded that Estridis and her infant daughter, or her young daughter, Sabrina, be drowned in the river. And they were, but this caused much sadness and grief among the populace. So in this tragic death, the river was named after her, and she became known as Sabrina, the nymph and guardian of the River Severn. And she is thought to protect when the river rages and floods. John Milton featured her in his work Comus as a nymph who calms the raging rivers and rescues a princess. So her heroic mythical status was enshrined by this. I heard this tale some years ago, and it's set in the 1990s, and be warned, it does contain some shocking events and themes. I did once get told a folk tale that you won't read in any books. I got told it by a local of Coton Hill. Yeah, Coton Hill is a neighbourhood of Shrewsbury. I'd heard the tale going around for a few years before I actually got told it in full. But it involved an acquaintance of mine, a character from Coton Hill. I don't think I'm going to mention his name in this video, but he'll probably try and charge me money. But he's told me the story a couple of times, and it maintains its story, and I really don't think he just made it up, because it's been around for so long. The story has, the tale. But anyway, the chap I know, was fishing around Shrewsbury, doing a spot of night fishing in the river near Coton Hill, and with his friends. And somebody in the party, it's pretty horrific actually, but someone in the party crucified an eel that they'd caught. Sounds horrific. Not only horrific, it sounds very difficult, as eels are not known for their arms. But this was what happened. Later that evening, sort of the vibe went a bit awry then, and later that evening, something appeared in the river. Yeah, the chap told me the story like I would know that crucifying an eel brings bad luck or summons evil spirits, river spirits. But I had no idea. I'd never heard of this folk tradition. But it always stuck with me. And what really stuck with me is what my acquaintance claimed came next. Coming up the river where they were fishing was a beast with glowing eyes, with a look, according to my contact in the Coton Hill folk magic community, like a beast with glowing eyes or a crocodile. Obviously, we don't get crocodiles in this country, and especially not in the River Severn. But he said it came up towards where they were fishing, and him and his friends, the eel crucifiers, scattered and ran away. Though they did return the next morning to get their fishing stuff, and he said it looked like something had messed everything up and knocked over their chairs and their little bivouac and all that. Crucially, their fishing equipment was all ruined. But that was really the end of it. It was just a very strange story. And it is a genuine folk story, river folk story of Coton Hill. Yeah, Shrewsbury is no stranger to the spectral. It's said to be one of Britain's most haunted towns, and it is thought by some that the Severn is to blame for this, because Shrewsbury's medieval streets are virtually encircled in a loop by the River Severn, and this is said to act as a barrier, stopping the spectral spirits from leaving, and that is why there are more ghosts in Shrewsbury, said to be, than any other town. What do you think? Tell me in the comments if you've got an opinion. The Sabrina boat runs ghost tours throughout October, because they talk about Civil War ghosts, ghost barges carrying plague victims and much more. Could be worth, like I say, checking out, because I haven't been on it yet. But back to our video. The ghost barge that we just mentioned, drifting silently from Iron Bridge. It is thought to come into the reach of Shrewsbury from time to time, but this flat bottom boat carried the unfortunate plague victims of Shrewsbury away from the town and towards what is now Iron Bridge. And on misty nights, it is still seen by some. The bridges of Shrewsbury, the English Bridge and the Welsh Bridge, are said to host the spirits of the 1403 Battle of Shrewsbury. The sounds of the shouts of "For Hotspur" are still heard by some. The clanking of armour and the screams as men were ditched into the river. Of course, the bridges that are there now, the structures that stand, the English Bridge and Welsh Bridge, are different to the medieval times. Shrewsbury Railway Station, a Tudor revival gem. It spans the River Severn like a watchful sentinel, but it's platform 3. That's the real ground zero for hauntings here. The winter of 1888
was fierce and the snow was heavy. Thomas, an MP and coal merchant, awaited the train on his carriage close to the platform. You could drive right up to it in those days, but it wasn't to be, because the platform had a canopy above it, a glass canopy, and it was weighed heavy by the snow. It snapped and glass and steel fell onto Thomas's carriage, crushing him, the carriage and the horses. It is said that his ghost still haunts platform 3 and Shrewsbury Railway Station to this day. There have been many disembodied sightings and other strange occurrences at the site. Thomas's body was mangled and he never made the train to London that he was waiting for. But perhaps his spirit is stuck in limbo, in this liminal space, and he's still here with us in some way, some manner. Yes, staff and passengers report seeing him still there. What they think of is him. Yeah, this man paces the platforms, especially platform 3, or slumps on a bench, but his eyes are always fixed on a timetable that is no longer there and a train that will never come. But the bridge beneath, that's where the river's pool twists the tail. Phantom legs, trouser-clad boots manifest it from the mist. So it is very still here today.
And now for my own brush with the unexplained.
So here I was, about 3:30 a.m, walking back from a party in, it must have been the late noughties, around there. And I was walking back to Castlefields. I'd gone to an afters, I think you'd call it, and it got to that stage where I was sitting around playing on PlayStation. And it was getting to that stage where I was going to have to sleep on someone's couch probably, and then they go through that grotty feeling of waking up. So I decided, no, I'm just going to walk home. And it was a dank, still evening. I had made my way from, I must have been in Bellevue or somewhere, the venue for the party or the afters, and I'd made my way the most direct route back along the towpath. I was heading towards Castlefields.
But this was the only time then or now that I have ever walked under the station bridge at 3:30 a.m. on my own.
But I didn't really think anything of it, but I did notice it was a still evening, and it was like the opposite of a moonlit evening. There was no stars visible, but the sky was low, but it wasn't foggy. It was just a dank evening, and I made my way along this towpath. Yeah, I'm thinking it must have been late winter, late January or February when this encounter with the strange happened. I was making my way to the bridge, and it's not the most welcoming place to walk under at the best of times, but on this evening it felt particularly strange and menacing. And I'm not someone who not boasting or anything, but I don't scare easy, and especially in those days, I wasn't fazed by most things. You know, I travelled around Europe and done a load of things. In my mind, I was pretty resilient, but as I got to about here, this kind of distance, and I could just see under the arch, there probably wasn't as much greenery around then because it was like late winter, as I said. I saw some shapes or figures, I'd call them. Yeah, they'd have been just around there, and there was about 3 of them I counted, and an extra anomalous shape that looked like it was sort of up the wall. And I'm familiar with that area. I've walked it loads of times, but even back then, and I couldn't think what they were holding on to, or it just seemed really strange. And there was something else I didn't like about it. Noise travels under those arches, under that bridge. It's a lot of metal, and it's cavernous, and things echo like crazy. When a train comes in, it like thunders under there, and birds make a lot of noise, and yeah, any noise travels, and especially on a very still, dank evening like it was back then. Yeah, and being just around there, I'm zoomed in a bit here. I could not see what they were, or who they were, or hear anything because it was silent. And I would have thought if they were late night party goers like myself, or even transients, taking shelter under there, they would have been making some noise. You would have heard something. Like I said, every echo travels in there, travels out. I would have heard something, but there wasn't even the sound of stirring. To describe the figures, I would say they were grey, white, though everything kind of looked like that colour at that time of night and in that light.
Yes, all street lamps gave this kind of orange glow before LED street lamps were introduced in the last 10 years. It gave everything a sort of surreal hue. But they didn't move. It was like a game of chicken, really. And being on my own and not really wanting to walk under there, in fact, I definitely did not want to walk under there, I turned on my heel and made my way back towards St Mary's Watergate, also known as Traitor's Gate. The equally atmospheric and probably haunted and historic, with layers of history, and all kinds of goings on have happened there over the years, but it was far more appealing than walking under the arches. And as I walked away, I never looked back, and I never regretted not walking under there that early hours of the morning. In fact, I mean, it didn't feel like a haunted encounter when it happened. It seemed like a brush with the unexplained. I just couldn't figure out what was going on, who the figures were, and the unknowns going on just sealed it for me, and I just got out of there. And like I say, I never looked back, but I obviously have thought about it from time to time, and I feel that if I had made the decision to go under there that evening, that night, early hours of the morning, 3:30, I wouldn't have come out the other side. And I'm still glad that I went the long way round. And I will say that the long way round is not very inviting at that time of the morning. It includes going over the Dana footbridge. It feels quite dystopian, but far more favourable than that. Yeah, and it really creeps me out to think this is the view that the figures would have had of me as I approached, and they'd have had a pretty good view. So thanks for watching third rate content tonight on our tour around Shrewsbury, the River Severn, Sabrina, and the legends and ghosts of this place. Remember, ghosts are just hooks, in my opinion, to hang stories and explanations for strange occurrences on. But whatever you think, there is no right or wrong answer. It's all speculative. But if you enjoyed tonight's video, why don't you drop us a like, subscribe if you haven't already, but thank you if you have. Why don't you boost or hype the video? Seems to be the thing to do at the moment, and we could do with the help. And if I don't see you soon, I'll see you 3 times as soon. Thanks very much. Third rate content signing out. Bye bye.